everyone. Welcome back to Underreported Stories, where I cover the news that CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News fail to report on or don't report on enough. And if I seem perhaps more mature, more wonderful than usual, that is because I have completed another 365 days around the sun as of yesterday. Yes, yesterday was my 28th birthday, and it was a very sweet weekend. My wonderful, wonderful husband surprised me with a surprise birthday party that I had no clue about. He made it all America-themed as an homage to my 10-year Americaversary. All my friends very much shocked me, and I don't know how to put it, guys. I have a lot of friends from a lot of different walks of life. Primarily, I think about my best friends in the whole world, and two of them live in Chicago, one's in Alabama, one's in Michigan. They're kind of all over. And so when I think about, having enough friends in my life to have a surprise birthday party other than just 2 or 3 people, I guess I was just shocked at the life I'd built here in Nashville, pleasantly surprised, which was great. However, my birthday weekend was great. My actual birthday, though, I am going to give it perhaps the second worst birthday I've ever had next to COVID, because obviously my birthday is March 24th. That was right after the COVID shutdowns in 2020. That was a pretty shitty birthday. Yesterday was seriously one of the worst days. Not ever, but I just had the worst story, and I just need to admit my stupidity off the front, because when I say it, it's tragic, but it's also a very funny story. Okay, so I'm going to tell you guys, but if you want to skip ahead to the news of the day, remember, there's always a chapters feature to find the stories you want to listen to. Okay, story time. So I am self-employed, right? Taxes are a nightmare. Obviously, tax season is upon us. It's coming up in 3 weeks. And so in order to not pay thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars of taxes in March or April, I pay them throughout the year. And if you haven't done this before, basically you go to the irs.gov or whatever, and you can make estimated balances. And I traditionally do that September to December just to kind of get ahead. I've earned up all year. Let's dump some out so it doesn't hurt as bad in April. That's always been the logic of it. That's what my tax guy recommends. So I go to do the same thing. Oh, turn my volume off. So I go to do the same exact thing that I would regularly do on any other day. And I'm doing it in March. This is the beginning of the month. And I go to click my little direct pay or whatever. And the only year, I guess not date, but year available was to pay your taxes for 2025. And I'm like, okay, cool. So I pay my tax. I assume it's for the year 2025 that I'm paying my taxes. So I will not disclose how much, but a large amount of my taxes. And I send the email over. A couple days later, my accountant responds to me and said, hey, you paid your taxes into 2025. He said, it's 2025. He said, no, you're paying 2024 taxes in 2025. So I go, okay, well, whatever. I'm going to call the IRS. And they literally told me to pound sand and that there was nothing they could do about this. I'm like, I gave you X amount of money. You can't then take that money and just use it now? Transfer it to 2024? No. I have now prepaid my 2025 taxes, and I still have to pay my 2024 taxes, which means I just wiped out a good chunk of our savings account this week. Yeah. I feel like I'm composed right now because it's a little funny. It's okay to make fun of ourselves. We're going to be okay. But I did spend all day crying. And I think that was my mistake for calling the IRS on my birthday. What lunatic does that? Me. That's who. But if you have any suggestions, I have heard that actually writing physical letters to the IRS can be better. Personally, I can't imagine that would be the case. How is it more productive to send a letter, a physical letter, than just do this over the phone? I have my sincere doubts, but I've heard it works. If you have any tips for me, please let me know, because your girl really screwed herself over for the next year. Anyway, my husband thinks it's funny, so funny, but also tragic, but he was like, it's going to be okay. So at least I got that. Anyway, other than birthday stuff, I've been off since Thursday, so I have so much to talk to you guys about. I also wanted to talk about my trip to South Dakota for the launch of a nonpartisan nature organization. So I'm actually going to be dropping a vlog all about my trip, what it looked like, all the things, the kind of intricacies of it, tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern. You can check that out on the YouTube channel. But there were some stories I wanted to share with you that just aren't included in the vlog because I needed a little bit more time to reflect on them and tell them as stories to you guys, obviously. So let me start with this. So we go to the trip, and like I said, it's a nonpartisan organization, so it's supposed to be a couple liberals, a couple conservatives. And there were 2 conservatives, myself included, and 3 liberals. And the first day, there were only 2 liberals. The third liberal didn't get in till late. So it's just 2 and 2. And one of these girls starts receiving backlash over her involvement in the organization. And now there are, if you read articles from the left, it's like, oh my gosh, this is a conservative nonprofit, evil, evil, evil. And if you read things on the right, they're like, oh my gosh, liberal organization masking itself as conservative. Red flag, you can't win in this. But this liberal girl gets invited. She comes. She starts getting a ton of backlash over her involvement because she's not like me in the sense where, like, I talk about a wide array of things. This is just something I'm very passionate about on the side. I don't really make it my whole personality. This is her whole personality, like being a green environmentalist. Now, I want to caveat for you is she wasn't tricked into this, right? She was invited by the CEO of the organization who is a conservative, okay? What I realized is that this wasn't about being tricked. This wasn't about liberalism versus conservatism. This is that this girl who has thousands and thousands of followers, like she's big enough to be invited on an influencer retreat of sorts, she had never received backlash before. And when she did, she started to shut down. And of course, like in that moment, my heart really hurt for her. I empathize with her because I've gone through a lot of backlash. I told her about my own story of being like canceled by my high school friends / entire high school. And I was like, girl, like, you'll get through it. But in that moment, I just wanted to be like, I am so thankful that I am conservative because we get shit on all the time. Like, this isn't just, reserved for conservative influencers or journalists or whatever the hell you want to call me. We get shit on all the time as conservatives, and we then build a thick skin over it. And to me, I was like, this is a regular day for me. Like, why are you reading the Instagram comments? People are assholes, right? And Amir Odom, he's another conservative he's really a YouTuber. He's great. I'm sure you guys follow him. He was also on the trip with me, and we were just looking at each other like, what the fuck? What? Why are they all up in arms? And I say all of that to say, I've been thinking a lot about the 2026 election, and I know that's like so far ahead, but going on this trip gave me a lot of confidence about the state of the 2026 election. Because so many of these liberal influencers, again, I'm just using that word as like a catch-all, but like creators, whatever you want to call them, they can only speak to their own cohort. And if they're not speaking to those people, they're worried about being canceled. And I don't know how you build a coalition like that. They also, just from observing them, and they're very nice people. I have no bad words about them. These are just observations I made about behavior, not about who they are as people. They truly didn't know how to bring people into the fold of a conversation that didn't match their worldview. Now, we were able to converse quite well. It's not anything like that. But the way they spoke to me, I just had to, brush it over my head because I knew where they were and I knew where I was. But they were using this really polarizing language like BIPOC, which if you've never heard of that means like Black, Indigenous, person of color. And they would use these like very woke lingo words in their everyday dialogue as if it was something that people knew. And now we have that too on the right? Or especially in like the Christian world. I say the name God, I say the name Jesus. Okay, polarizing, wow, pathetic, but polarizing, So I totally understand that there are markers of where we lie in society as individuals that make us, like, they sound normal to us, but they really aren't. But the words that trigger people to tune out of a conversation are so much more ubiquitous in the day-to-day word choice of a liberal in a comparison to your average American or your average conservative, right? And so the way I heard them talk over and over again using these phrases, BIPOC, climate change, all these words where I was like, and I would tune out if I wasn't supposed to be here or like trying to be nice to you as a person. Overall, I just left feeling like, wow, this is like, we're in a very positive state for the election because young people have the option to hear conservative voices, liberal voices, but the conservative voices do such a better job at bringing you into the fold because we just talk how you normally talk. We don't talk with all this weird-ass lingo. I am talking to the camera right now. you guys, because I feel like I know you guys, like I would talk to my friends. Half the time I write anything that goes on my computer, I'm talking to you like you're my friend. And that is just missing in liberal politics. And it's what gives me hope, is that that's what brings people over. That's what builds a coalition, is relationships. And that is just completely lost. And I just, by the way, want to say really quick, it's not about all the liberals that were on that trip. The person I spent the most time with on that entire trip, her name's Alicia. She's a liberal. Love this girl. Like, would-be buddies would hang out with her every weekend if we lived near each other. Like, great girl. So I am not trying to diss these people at all. It was more of a commentary on how liberal politics and liberal commentators are just eating one another for something that I think we should all be able to agree on, which is that, like, clean air is good and we should try to protect clean air in any administration. But anyway, let's get into our docket for today. I would be absolutely remiss if we did not talk about this Trump National Security Team group chat. I got thoughts. I've got the facts too. And I've also got gut feelings. I gotta share it with you guys. Plus, I've got a little mini expose on a controversial Democrat. I'm sure you know her name. Plus, MSNBC was forced to issue a correction about Tulsi Gabbard. And we've got a quick little Is It Real or Is It Satire segment at the end of today's show. So without further ado, let's get into the 5 underreported stories that you need to know. It is so hard to know what information to trust, especially when information is released faster than it can be verified. And reporting nowadays really favors clickbait journalism over the high-quality journalism that takes time to prepare. And that is why when I prep this show, when I read my news in the morning, when I just trying to find out the facts of a story, I trust Ground News. It's an app and a website that combines news from all different sides of the political spectrum to give you the facts and see where the media is exaggerating, sensationalizing, or underreporting the news. And yes, I sincerely believe with my whole heart that God came down and said, let me create an app for the people who love you, you and I. Anyway, when you use my link in the description, you will get 40% off of the Vantage subscription. I say this every time I do an ad read for Ground News. I pay for this out of my own pocket, so you should too. Head over to check.ground.news/Chrissy to get informed on the go. Usually we don't touch on big stories that are all over the news, but this I had to make an exception for, mostly because the facts of the story are just getting so spun that I figured, if I just give you the facts, then it's technically an underreported story anyway. So, big news of the day. Top officials from our national security team accidentally included the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic into a group chat with top security officials and the Vice President of the United States in a group chat on what is called Signal. It's a secure messaging app. Now, like I said, there is a lot of personal speculation about this story, depending on where you get your information from, but I'm going to give you the facts here, okay? The chat was intended for coordinating military operations that had already been approved, specifically military operations against a rebel group called the Houthis, which are located in Yemen. And the U.S. engaged in airstrikes, successfully, might I add, against the Houthis, killing multiple terrorists. And those airstrikes were created and confirmed in a top-secret military environment, and then they were discussed in this group chat before the attacks played out, within 2 hours of those attacks playing out. Now, regardless, the National Security Council has kickstarted an investigation into this breach and the alleged use of an unclassified communication channel, because Signal, the app, it's a phone app. I use it. It's like I have it on my phone. It's very common in journalist world. It is not considered a classified communication channel for the federal government, and they were allegedly using that to discuss sensitive information. And by the way, the individual who added Jeffrey Goldberg, the Atlantic editor-in-chief, to that group chat was National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, allegedly. So I want to pull up what Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said on this matter. She said, Jeffrey Goldberg is well known for his sensationalist spin. Here are the facts about the latest story. 1. No war plans were discussed. 2. No classified material was sent to the thread. Now, technically we can't confirm 1 and 2 because Jeff Goldberg has not posted all of the text messages, However, he would be in massive violation if he did post all of those, nor would we want him to post all of those. So I'm hoping that Caroline Leavitt is telling the truth. But again, we don't 100% know, nor did Jeff Goldberg tell us, nor is he a trustworthy person worthy of our trust. Anyway, she goes on to say, 3, the White House counsel's office has provided guidance on a number of different platforms for President Trump's top officials to communicate as safely and efficiently as possible. Because relative to like iMessage, Signal's encrypted. It's a much safer way to communicate. Goes on to say, as the National Security Council stated, the White House is looking into how Goldberg's number was inadvertently added to the thread, thanks to the strong and decisive leadership of Trump, yada, yada, yada. Okay, we're talking about the terrorist attack. Good. Okay. People are upset about this, though, because this appears to be a big breach in security protocols. And Jeff Goldberg is enemy enough. Like, letting him into the group chat, red flag. Can't imagine if anything worse would have happened. It would have just been bad all around. And I think I need to get on here and say, like, I have the fortitude to admit that if Kamala's national security advisor pulled something like this, I'd be tripping balls over that person's stupidity. I have no problem admitting that this is bad. However, the biggest problem in this story right now, in terms of like real life impact for America, is that Jeff Goldberg was added to this group chat, right? Without him being added, we just successfully took out a bunch of terrorists. So that's a win. And no one would know anything different, or that our national security advisors have a little group chat were it not for Jeff Goldberg. And I'm not saying that he shouldn't have reported on it. Just saying there are no real world implications as of now, right now. However, obviously the big controversy is the semantic game that the media is going to be playing after this whole drama ensued. We know that this group chat is real, right? The White House has admitted that this is real. We know this whole story is true. We're not waiting on the White House to get back to us. They admitted this is true. This is a real group chat. These are the real players, okay? The semantic game that is so important here is whether there were war plans discussed. And we've had this conversation on the show a lot, specifically in regards to illegal immigration. Words have technical meanings, and then they have meaning in our day-to-day vernacular. For example, I use this example a lot, speeding is a civil infraction. But if I said I broke the speed limit, people would be like, ooh, she committed a crime, right? That's how we understand. And the language that we use day-to-day is separate from the technicality. And I think that's exactly what's happening here. Obviously, I'm happy to await the investigation results, but my understanding of the situation thus far is that war plans were not technically discussed because the plans divulged are not technically war plans in the government's definition. But you don't have to abide by the technical definition to know that whatever they were talking about was not for public consumption, could be very scary in the wrong hands, and we want to ensure that we don't have mistakes like that ever again, or utilize instruments like Signal that put us in a compromising position, right? I will be incredibly interested to know how the right responds to this error and whether people will be fired for this. I'm curious. Let me know in the comments what you guys think, whether you think anybody should or will get fired. I haven't heard of rumblings outside of like Axios and the left being like, fire the National Security Advisor Mark Waltz. Okay, perhaps. But what I do know for certain is that anyone, including Axios over there, anyone who didn't call for the ousting of the military officials involved in the Afghanistan withdrawal that took the lives of 13 military men, yeah, they can pipe the fuck down about a group chat. Just saying. Anyway, let's get into our next story. I'm sure by now you guys are familiar with the oh so wonderful Jasmine Crockett. And if you aren't, well, she's a Texas Democrat. And she recently went on ABC to claim that Doge and Elon Musk's refund check idea isn't in the interest of the government. Which, fair assessment, actually. There are plenty of people on the right who think that this refund check is problematic and that we should use all the money to pay off existing debt and whatnot. I'm actually not taking issue with her stance on that. But in her statements, she is very publicly upset with Elon Musk for this idea. And she added at the end of her sentence that she didn't even know what $5,000 would even possibly do for Americans. Like, if you got $5,000, that'd be like getting 5 pennies. That's the way she spoke about it. So the whole clip is going to be linked in the story section of the description, but I'm just going to play a tiny clip of it just to give you a sound bite of how this interview went.
So no, we are not in the business of giving out money. And honestly, I don't know what $5,000 will do for you.
This girl is cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs if she thinks that getting a $5,000 check wouldn't completely alter the lives of a lot of Americans. Well, it would help me get some of my tax money back from the IRS. That is for sure. But regardless of what you think about that statement or these refund checks, the point of this story is that Jasmine Crockett went on TV and just lambasted Elon Musk's programs, which is to be expected. She's a Democrat. But then right after this news hit, we found out that that same woman, Jasmine Crockett, is using taxpayer money to pay off a nearly $1,000 car payment each month. And a car payment, by the way, that perfectly aligns with the amount of money you would have to spend each month on a Model S Tesla. And the reason we believe, although we cannot know without a doubt, but the reason we believe that Jasmine Crockett is likely leasing a Tesla is that each month we as taxpayers, we foot the bill for a $1,000 car payment that she's publicly financed using this fringe benefit that allows representatives to bill the public for only EPA-approved cars, and that includes Tesla. So Jasmine Crockett is not legally forced to tell us what type of car she's financing through our taxpayer dollars, which to me in and of itself, that's crazy. But how nuts would it be if she was shitting on Elon Musk for trying to give Americans a tax credit while spending our money on a Tesla and after she just went on the news and claimed that she wasn't in favor of refund checks in the name of fiscal responsibility? Bitch, could you be a bigger hypocrite? Ugh. No, I don't think she could. But to be fair, though, getting so frazzled, I'm hitting my microphone. To be fair, though, this isn't just Jasmine Crockett renting these luxury cars. Because, come on, let's be honest, a Tesla is a luxury car. There are plenty of Democrats and Republicans renting BMWs, Teslas, Cadillacs, other luxury vehicle brands on our tax dollars. Okay, so this is kind of a normal thing, sadly. But Jasmine Crockett, she just deserves special attention for her lack of empathy. However, before we move past Jasmine Crockett, there's a video footage recently uncovered of Jasmine Crockett going viral today, referring to the Texas Governor Greg Abbott, who, by the way, if you've never seen the man, he's in a wheelchair, and she refers to him as Governor Hot Wheels.
Because we in these hot-ass Texas streets, honey. Y'all know we got Governor Hot Wheels down there. Come on now. And the only thing hot about him is that he is a hot ass mess, honey. So yes.
The party of love and tolerance out here, making fun of a disabled man at an event for the Human Rights Campaign, which is, where she was giving this speech. And the Human Rights Campaign, of course, proclaims to care about everyone, including the disabled. Oh my gosh. Keep putting Jasmine Crockett on the stage. I shouldn't complain about this. Keep putting Jasmine Crockett on the stage. Republicans are going to have a really successful 2026 midterm year if we just keep putting up Jasmine Crockett's of the world. Anyway. All right. I have a short story for story number 3, but I know we have some UK listeners and actually a growing facet of UK listeners. Don't know how you got here. So happy you're here. But this does relate back to messaging in the US, so don't fear. So the UK is realizing very quickly that the welfare state is completely unsustainable that they've built over there. So in the UK, which they are currently run by a very left-leaning Labour Party, one that we have criticized a lot on this channel, but the UK and their left-leaning Labour Party are cutting over £5 billion in welfare payments for people because apparently too many people are on these long-term benefits for things like anxiety and back pain. And while, of course, I don't want to minimize anybody's problems, for real, people go through stuff and you say back pain, but damn, have you ever had bad back pain? And you say anxiety, but people do suffer from crippling anxiety. I get it. I'm not here to minimize people's problems, but there are some problems more than others. And let's be honest, back pain and anxiety, while sucky, do not warrant disability payments or income support from the federal government because finding a job makes you anxious or you need to take more Advil, okay? And to me, this is the biggest concession that we are ever going to get on this welfare debate here in the U.S. is what they're doing over in the U.K. Because the U.K. has a much more robust, intense welfare state than anything we have here in the U.S. And the road that we see that it leads down is financial instability and welfare cutbacks, inevitably. That's just a given. And the left in the U.S. is clearly struggling for a successful messaging moment. This whole group chat dilemma that we were talking about earlier in the show, that's the best PR Democrats have had in the past 2 years. So if they're really looking to get a grip on reality, they need to look to European left-leaning counterparts and make concessions on issues that will inevitably fail if they want to be successful. Now, I'm not in the business of helping Democrats, but if I were, the gender issue, the extreme abortion issue, the bloated welfare state for all, those are issues that European counterparts on the left have had to concede on as a losing issue for them to see any success in the general population. And they're seeing that success at a time when globally the right is on the rise. So, I don't know. I'm just telling you that. But also, I wanted to share this story to give you guys a semblance of confidence in your messaging about these topics. I feel like a lot of times Republicans right now are pushing for, here in the U.S., they're advocating that for able-bodied adults, they should be working at least 20 hours to keep their Medicaid. And that's being branded as mean and taking away benefits. No. It is common sense to parse back a welfare state that cannot keep spending like a drunken sailor. We're watching it happen in the UK. We watched everything with the trans craze happen over in the UK. We watched extreme abortion, sink back down in the UK, in all of these countries. Have we learned nothing? Have we seriously learned absolutely nothing? Apparently not. I love uncovering the truth in politics, in media, and even the truth about what's in our so-called cleaning products. Most of these store-bought cleaning products are loaded with toxic chemicals, hormone disruptors, and allergens. This is stuff that can impact your health, your kids' health, and even your pets. I would never do that to Mr. Harper. That is why I made the switch to Branch Basics. Their products are completely non-toxic and human safe, no synthetic fragrances or weird chemicals. They use plant and mineral-based formulas that leave your home truly clean without compromising your health. We just got the it's like a powder detergent for your laundry. It's super dummy-proof. My husband uses it, no problem. So if you're ready to toss the toxins, head over to branchbasics.com/Chrissy or use the link in the description. And when you use code Chrissy, that's CHRISSY, you will get 15% off of your first order. Again, use code Chrissy at checkout. MSNBC aired a segment accusing the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, of being a Russian asset. Again. But this time, they were forced to issue a correction after legal pushback. But this legal correction was issued after the network openly slandered Tulsi Gabbard, and thousands of people had already heard that as fact. And then MSNBC went and they peddled all of this to their other little spheres of influence as fact. And that claim then popped up and was propped up by the Associated Press, which later had to retract its story because this is what happens. These media outlets use one another to fact check, which means they basically just rely on the facts of another person's reporting, which is not reporting at all. Really quick, watch this piss poor attempt at an apology from MSNBC, and we'll break it down on the other side.
Before we go, though, last night we reported on excerpts of an interview between the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, and an Indian TV news network, in which she said that Trump was good friends with a world leader. We said that world leader was Vladimir Putin, but the full interview shows that Gabbard was referring to Trump and Indian Prime Minister Modi. We'll clear that up.
This is quite literally the millionth time the legacy media has tried to spin this Russian collusion narrative with Tulsi Gabbard with no proof for it. At a certain point, these pseudo-journalists, they must realize there's no squirrel up the tree for them to keep barking at. Why they just keep going, woof, 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 bark, bark, bark. That's the mainstream media. And, okay, I want to go back to what I was just talking about 1 second ago and explain how journalism is supposed to work in this world. So if MSNBC, if Fox News says, Tulsi Gabbard said she's best friends with Russian President Vladimir Putin, and they don't have a text message or a screenshot or proof that Tulsi Gabbard says this, then another news outlet like the Associated Press, the Daily Wire, they cannot or should not cite an MSNBC report as fact without utilizing the words reportedly or allegedly. I use those words all the time, okay, because we're a team of one here. If you don't use those words and you just take MSNBC's report as fact and at face value, that fails basic journalistic standards. But like I alluded to, the media has become so incestuous with one another that when one outlet reports faulty information, they all just trust one another instead of engaging in actual journalism. And that is a whole different set of deception that happens on both the right and the left. And I would be lying if I said, at one point in my career, I didn't want to engage in this. I was like, oh, but I know that person at Fox News. I trust them. Whatever. And I'll never forget I had an editor-in-chief of the Daily Caller look at me and go, that's not how you fucking do journalism. I was terrified of him at the time. But you know what? I'm very thankful for it because it wakes you up. You can't just take what the New York Post says at face value if they don't have screenshots, evidence, etc. You could say allegedly, but you can't say it as fact. It's just how the world works in journalism. And I wish journalists would live up to the standard of, I don't know, journalism. What a crazy thought. Anyway, let's get into our fifth and final story, which is some education news, kinder. So the Department of Education, before it hopefully gets eradicated, has decided to put a hold on a $175 million federal funding for the University of Pennsylvania because the school right now refuses to comply with the Trump executive order to keep men out of women's sports. This is obviously in response to the whole transgender swimmer Leah Thomas, who swam in the women's league at UPenn a few years back. Now, currently, UPenn maintains that it's in compliance with the NCAA and Ivy League regulations and hasn't received a formal notification regarding this suspended funding. But I suspect that as soon as that notification officially comes through, that UPenn is going to start to succumb to the pressure very quickly. They do not live, these universities, by their alleged morals. And I'm not calling them actually moral. I'm just saying they have a morality that they're going to stick up for X type of vulnerable in their idea people, right? And then the second that it becomes about money and a $175 million federal funding check goes out the window, these institutions are no longer interested in their alleged morals because for them, it's all about money and feeling superior. That's really all this is. And I just got to say, you guys know, I'm not the first to be like, yay, Trump everything. I like the guy. I voted for him. But I really, really, really love this technique that the administration is engaging in right now with putting the executive order in place, giving people time to, make a change, implement the change. And these are not just, private businesses. These are people that receive, or organizations or institutions that receive federal funding. Give them time to implement that change. When they refuse, and most of them publicly refuse, to engage and follow the law, go after them by freezing assets and forcing compliance. There's nothing illegal about that. It sets a wonderful standard, and it's a great deterrent because it's done so publicly, because everything Trump does is so public and big. And I love it. We saw that Trump meant business in Maine when he publicly went after the governor of Maine for failing to abide by that exact executive order protecting women's sports. He threatened a funding freeze and boom, Maine had to comply. It's crazy what real leadership can do. And I think that this is a wonderful standard that the Trump administration should continue to abide by if it's looking for a successful roadmap down the road. Hopefully Democrats don't get too smart to that, though, because it's a really good standard if you are in power. And I'll admit that. If you are in power. Could get tricky down the road, guys. Anyway, before we wrap up today's show, I do want to play a round of Is It Real or Is It Satire? The segment that makes you wonder,
is it real or is it satire?
You cannot be serious!
My friend Alicia DM'd this to me on Instagram, and I was just absolutely floored by this. So, Inspira Health Hospital in New Jersey gave a questionnaire to parents asking them what the gender identity of their newborn child is. This is what the form reads. At Inspira Health, our mission is to provide a safe and Okay, I'm not going to read that shit. That's annoying. It says patient name, in parentheses, newborn, and then the newborn's date of birth. What sex was your baby assigned at birth? Female, male, prefer not to answer. Do you identify your baby as female, male, transgender female, trans woman, male, female, transgender male, trans man, female to male, gender queer, neither exclusively male nor female, additional gender category self-described, please specify, prefer not to answer. So we're letting the baby identify, or parents are identifying things for the baby, and then what? We're putting these on birth certificate forms so that if a heterosexual white male is born into this world, we can tell them, actually, on your form that we have at Inspira Health, you're actually genderqueer. Is that what we're doing? Is that what we're doing? It goes on to say, which of the following best describes your baby? Lesbian or gay? Straight or heterosexual? Bisexual? Questioning, unsure. We're talking about babies. Babies don't know if they're lesbian or gay, okay? And maybe, we could debate about it. Like, they might know soon, but they certainly don't know when they're babies. What self-describes, please describe, as a fucking baby? They always take it too far, guys. They always take it too far. I sincerely hope that this is satire. This was sent to me. I'm not reporting this as fact. This is allegedly something that came up at Inspira Health. The group Gays Against Groomers is the one that put it out. So we'll keep our eyes on that, whether that's a real story or not. I didn't make it a story. I just wanted to share this insanity that's going viral on social media with you guys. Anyway, if you're a real one and you made it to the end of today's show, will you drop the swimmer emoji as an homage to our fifth story about Leah Thomas and UPenn? Thank you, friends. I will see you back here on Thursday. And remember, vlog from the South Dakota trip drops tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern. Bye. Thanks so much for watching. If you liked what you heard, please be sure to subscribe and leave a comment about how beautiful, intelligent, and funny I am. And if you want more content, click right over here for more videos and clips of my show. I'll see you back here next time. Bye.